Welcome to Blueprint for Life, the podcast designed to encourage, uplift, and challenge you on your journey. In just a moment, we will be joined by our host, Elder Lawrence McCarter Jr. We are thrilled you are willing to join us on this transformational ride. At Blueprint for Life, we believe each of us has a unique blueprint crafted by God Himself. This podcast will explore how to discover and unlock that blueprint, allowing you to live a life of purpose, fulfillment, and joy. Through insightful conversations, thought-provoking interviews, and biblical truths, we will delve into the keys that can unlock your potential. Together, we will navigate the challenges, setbacks, and triumphs that come our way, always relying on the timeless wisdom found in God's Word.
Welcome to the Blueprint, or for those of you who've been with me for a little while, welcome back to the Blueprint. It has been another week, and for those of you who are paying attention, man, it has been hot lately. It is, man, it's like the end of June, and it has been hot. Here in South Carolina, man, it's been in the triple digits, and whew, for those of you who don't have to go outside, please don't. It is hot, very hot. I would avoid going outside if I were you. If you don't have to, don't do it. If you have to, do it in very short bursts because it has been hot. But yeah, guys, take care of yourselves. Drink plenty of water. Avoid the heat as much as possible. And if you have to be out in it, do take care of yourselves. Because, in all honesty, no one else is going to do it quite like you can. But anyway, I'm glad to be back. It's good to be back. It's another week, and I'm glad to be alive. There's this comedian that I enjoy by the name of Mike Goodwin. Absolutely love his comedy. I'd love to go to one of his shows. I tell you, I would take my daughter to one of his shows if I didn't think she would run around and totally disrupt things any other normal toddler would. But that just goes to show how much I trust his show to be clean and wholesome. And Mike, if you ever run across this podcast, just know that as one kid from Camden to another kid that grew up in Camden, you inspired this show. Yeah, Mike has this one bit that he does that it's become pretty well known, called What You Not Gonna Do. And I actually heard that bit on Dry Bar Comedy once. I was sitting around playing around on my phone and ran across it, and when I first heard it, it took me down memory lane because I can remember my mom and my grandmother and my aunt telling me things, and even my sister and my cousin. They were telling us, what you're not gonna do is run in and out of my house all day long, and what you're not gonna do is stand in my refrigerator letting all the air out. And one of them that I heard a lot is, what you're not gonna do is drink up all my juice and soda like some kind of sugar camel preparing for a trip. But one of my personal favorites is one that got directed at all of us kids when we tried to be sneaky and we were attempting to play one adult against the other in order to get what it is that we wanted. And we were told, what you're not gonna do is put words in my mouth as if that's gonna get you what you want. And I don't remember a single occasion where that got us anything other than trouble. And it may have taken some time for us to learn, but we eventually did learn that when one of them said something, that was what they meant. And it may as well have come from all of them. Nowadays, we live in a world that seems to be a bit more flexible. But I still remember the lessons of my youth and how what was said was what was meant, and what was meant was what was said. The same needs to be said and reiterated about the Bible. It needs to be repeatedly, reiterated about the Bible, especially because it will have such a massive impact on your individual blueprint, whether you understand and apply this particular principle or not. And that's why I'm going to go over 5 things Jesus did not say that folks seem to try to live by, that leads to many of the unfortunate outcomes in people's lives that could ultimately have been avoided. Now, the first one that everybody seems to want to think that Jesus somehow said is follow your heart. This one I don't get. Follow your heart. I don't remember reading that. Because first of all, Jeremiah the 17th chapter, 9th verse says, the heart is more deceitful than all else and is desperately sick. Who can understand it? If you plan to follow your heart, you should prepare yourself for some pretty dark places. Additionally, if you look at Mark the 7th chapter, 21st through the 23rd verse, it says, for from within, out of the heart of men, proceed the evil thoughts, fornications, thefts, murders, adulteries, deeds of coveting and wickedness, as well as deceit, sensuality, envy, slander, pride, and foolishness. All these evil things proceed from within and defile the man. Now, aside from the thefts and murders, all of these are things that most of us see in ourselves or in others around us on a regular basis. So you may think it's not a big deal. What's wrong with a few evil thoughts, right? According to Proverbs, the 23rd chapter, 7th verse, for as he thinks within himself, so he is. Let that roll around and bake your noodle. Instead of saying to follow your heart, what Jesus actually said was to follow him. In Matthew, the 16th chapter, 24th through the 26th verse, then Jesus said to his disciples, if anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me. For whoever wishes to save his life will lose it, but whoever loses his life for my sake will find it. For what will it profit a man if he gains the whole world and forfeits his soul? Or what will a man give in exchange for his soul? It seems like a bit of an oxymoron to surrender that which you wish to save in order to gain that which you have surrendered. But that is exactly what Jesus compels us to do. The problem we face is that what we wish to save has been poisoned and is dying, and we have no access to the cure. Satan saw to that in the Garden of Eden. He ensured that our sin nature would overwhelm us on every side, and that we would be totally incapable of fighting against it, so long as we were the only ones trying to fight to suppress it. So Jesus says to us, instead of trying to save your own life, sacrifice it to him. Let him take it. He'll take what we can't handle so that we can live. What greater benefit, what greater blessing. Instead of you trying to do it all yourself, let him do it. Number 2, be true to yourself. To thine own self be true is a famous line from Shakespeare's play Hamlet that's been repeated times innumerable and has come to be synonymous with the phrase, be your authentic self. What's actually truly ironic and likely only known to those who take an interest is that this phrase was uttered in a discourse by the character Polonius, whose actions and character were both incredibly shady and led to the death of his daughter by suicide and his own death when he was stabbed to death by spying on Hamlet. That's not exactly the picture of authentic self. Now, as I said earlier, the things that come from within us are not pretty. We actually house some pretty evil things inside of us, right? Since the garden, every sin, every evil, every vile and despicable act is possible for each one of us. Now, we may say that we would never do this or that, or we couldn't see ourselves doing this or that. But there are a lot of people behind bars today and buried in cemeteries the world over that never imagined that they would be capable of the act that they committed until they did. Instead of judging, all I can say is, but for the grace of God, there go I. instead of saying to be true to yourself, Jesus says to deny yourself. If you look back at Matthew 16:24, then Jesus said to his disciples, "If anyone wishes to come after me, he must deny himself and take up his cross and follow me." If we were true to ourselves, we would surrender to our baser urges, allow ourselves to let our sin nature to guide our actions with no thought of consequences, with no concern for laws, man or God-given. And this would result in the appearance of horror the likes you couldn't imagine. Hollywood couldn't even contrive of the terror of seeing mankind unleashed to express the evil that lies beneath his skin, barely contained by his minuscule concern for laws and public perception. Could you imagine living in such a way that nothing could hold you back? That you do whatever it is that you want to do, regardless of what anybody says to you, regardless of what the law says you can or can't do, as if there is no law. But rather, Jesus would have us to deny ourselves, deny feeding the monster within, and take up our individual cross of surrender. There's an old saying that what you feed grows stronger. So if you feed the beast within, it will grow stronger, and eventually you won't be able to control it. The converse is true as well, though. If you deny it food, if you find a fellowship to join yourself to and surround yourself with like-minded people, if you read and study your Bible on a regular basis, if you pray often and continually, if you do all you can to stay away from the temptation of Satan and do as James 4:7 says, submit therefore to God, resist the devil and he will flee from you, and then take up your cross and surrender to Jesus and allow him to take all the things you could never handle, which is everything. Let him take it away from you and follow him. Then I imagine things will change for you in such a great and dramatic way. I know they did for me. My life is nothing like it used to be. Now, I can't make a claim to have become this perfect individual. None of us can. That's the last thing I'll ever claim. But I can honestly say I'm not who I used to be. I'm not like I used to be. But in order to get to that point, we have to deny ourselves. Because remember, we have the ability to be a truly evil, vile, and despicable individual in us. Because when man fell into sin, everything that is sin is in us. That's our sin nature. It's not we got to cherry pick and say, I'm capable of this, but not that. No, we fell into sin. So it's not like when Adam fell in sin, he was like, okay, I can do this and maybe a little dabble of that. But no, I'm not capable of those things. No, everything under the sun, the moon, and the stars, Adam is capable of. And so are we. All right. Number 3, believe in yourself. All right. Now, let me preface this by saying I'm not trying to bring shade or anything like that. But I do want to ask a real question. And I just want you to take a moment to think and then give yourself a real answer. Okay? This is a real question, and you owe yourself a real answer. The question is this: can you trust yourself? Now let's take it a little bit further. Can you trust yourself 100% of the time? Can you trust yourself 100% of the time to give yourself the 100% correct answer based on all of the information, data, both known and unknown, facts linked to the past, present, and future. An answer to the issue that you currently face that will bring you optimal joy without costing you optimal joy in any other decision for the remainder of your life. Can you trust yourself? Can you trust yourself to make the hard decision right now that might bring you a year of grief for years of joy, or years of grief for a moment of joy that will outshine the years you suffered? This has absolutely nothing to do with your or my confidence level, because we could have confidence out the wazoo. We could believe that the sun rises and falls on us, and that we have the confidence to do any and everything that we put our minds to. But this has nothing to do with that, and everything to do with our level of trust. Can you trust you to do the impossible? Now, if you can, realistically, I'm not talking about you being delusional or being narcissistic, but if you can, then feel free to worship yourself. But for those of us that are still living on planet Earth, if you can't, I want you to acknowledge that there is absolutely nothing wrong with you. Absolutely nothing wrong with you. Okay? According to Psalms 14th chapter, 1st verse, says, "The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt. They have committed abominable deeds. There is no one who does good." Psalms 53rd chapter, 1st verse also says, "The fool has said in his heart, there is no God. They are corrupt and have committed abominable injustice. There is no one who does good." Let me tell you, if you can look around, not even around, let's bring it closer to home. If you can look at the human body, something that in most cases, if anything is off by smaller margins than millimeters, it won't function correctly. I would say that you have failed at your efforts to be a faithless individual, because according to the definition I know in Hebrews 11:1, it says that now faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things not seen, which means, if you break it down a little bit further, it's essentially saying that faith is the evidence or the ability to perceive the things that you hope for, and the conviction or the evidence or the solid know or knowing of things that you can't see. If you can look at the human body and tell me that it wasn't created by, it wasn't at least created by something, then I would say that you have failed at your efforts to be a faithless individual, because according to this definition, you have more faith than I do. Also, with these passages, it's telling you very plainly that there is no one who does good. Even Jesus in Luke 18:19 said, "Why do you call me good? No one is good except God alone." Not even Jesus was willing to accept when they called him good master, because he had not finished his time on earth. Not even he was willing to accept being called good, because he had not finished his journey on earth, because he had not completed his time on earth, because he had not drawn to the completion and finished his time and able to leave and say, you know what, I did everything I was supposed to do, and I didn't trip, stumble, fall, or nothing at all. I'm able to now say I've been perfect from start to finish. He wouldn't even allow them to call him good. And we know that he finished and did his time perfectly. Proverbs the 3rd chapter 5th verse says, "Trust in the Lord with all your heart, and do not lean on your own understanding." When I was a child, I used to wonder why the Bible read like a history book. But now that I've gotten older and I've had a chance to read it and to study it and to go through and to finally gain a better understanding, now I understand it was God's way of showing his trustworthiness. He was showing us, this is what I did, and this is how you can recognize me. So when I do things in your life, this is how you'll know it's me. I did all of that so that you can trust me. Proverbs the 28th chapter, 25th and 26th verse says, "An arrogant man stirs up strife, but he who trusts in the Lord will prosper. He who trusts in his own heart is a fool, but he who walks wisely will be delivered." I might have talked about it before, but I'll keep harping on it until Jesus comes back. Our hearts are not to be trusted, and anybody who does is in for a world of hurt. If we trust the one who has gone out of his way to earn our trust when it wasn't even necessary for him to bother doing so, then we will prosper. Philippians 4:13 says that I can do all things through him who strengthens me. And Isaiah 40th chapter 28 through 31 says, "Do you not know, have you not heard? The everlasting God, the Lord, the creator of the ends of the earth, does not become weary or tired. His understanding is inscrutable. He gives strength to the weary, and to him who lacks might he increases power. Though youths grow weary and tired, and vigorous young men stumble badly, yet those who wait for the Lord will gain new strength. They will mount up with wings like eagles. They will run and not get tired. They will walk and not become weary." When I was in the military, and we would have especially brutal days where we were pushing ourselves beyond our limits, I can remember having sergeants and lieutenants who, trying to encourage us, they'd be out there telling us, "You got to believe in yourself so we can complete the mission," and a whole bunch of other empty platitudes. Now, I say empty because sure, they sounded nice, and they may have genuinely believed them. But in all honesty, none of what they said actually gave us any additional energy, strength, or anything. We still sweat by the bucket load in 150-degree heat, carrying weight we didn't want to carry, seeing and hearing things we wished we could forget, knowing we never would. These promises are not empty platitudes. God does not sleep. He does not get tired. You will never fall to your knees to pray and get voicemail. When you need strength, it's yours for the asking. And if you need power, he has more than you could ever use.
Hey there, fellow listeners. As we wind down another inspiring episode of Blueprint for Life, we want to thank you for tuning in. Remember, you can always find more uplifting content and past episodes on our website, blueprintforlifepodcast.com, or wherever you get your podcasts from. Join us next week as Elder McCarter closes out this impactful message, giving more insight into God's plan for your personal blueprint. Until then, stay blessed and keep shining your light.